Hello.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Good morning. Welcome. Be welcome to your press conference.
Bienvenue à votre...
C'est un plaisir d'animer la conférence de presse concernant ce très beau film Boy from Heaven, d'un réalisateur qui ne cesse de m'intéresser et de m'étonner, mais ça c'est un avis très personnel, mais je tenais à le faire partager. Juste avant de vous présenter les participants
Before introducing the guests at this press conference, it's my pleasure to welcome a few people from the team who have joined us here this morning. I won't pronounce their names very well, and I apologize for that beforehand. Makram Koui,
Mohamed Bakri, Mehdi Déby, que je connais bien évidemment, qu'on fait déjà rencontrer, Sherwan Haji, Jalala Altawin, Younes Metat. Peut-être que là je commets une erreur. Mille pardons, Ahmed Lassaoui et Hassan El Sayed. Bienvenue.
Welcome.
Et pour cette conférence de presse,
j'ai l'immense plaisir it is my great pleasure to welcome the director and scriptwriter.
Thank you.
Tawfik Barham, qui
Tawfik Barham,
merveilleusement, magistralement devrais-je dire,
plays the part of Adam in a very accomplished manner.
À chaque fois je viens.
Merci beaucoup, merci beaucoup.
Fares, que l'on connaissait,
Fares, who we knew,
le Caire confidentiel, mais qui rejoint également l'équipe de Boy from Heaven.
Thanks to the Nile Hilton incident. He's Abraham in The Boy from Heaven.
Christina Eberg,
who's the co-producer of the film, the producer, in fact, of the film.
You are the producer of the movie.
Yeah, I'm the producer of the movie.
You can have the headset if you need the translation.
Sorry?
You can have the headset if you need the translation in English.
Sorry, I don't speak French. None of us.
Et Frédéric Zander, qui est également le
Frederick Zander, who's also the producer of the film.
Tariq Saleh, c'est le
Tariq Saleh, of course, made the Nile Hilton incident a tremendous success in France.
Succès au César suédois. Alors là, je me Guldbaggen.
Guldbaggen
dont un du meilleur.
Also was a huge success.
Meilleur acteur.
And Fares was the actor in this film.
Yes, you were.
It's like so easy for him to...
Alors, je vais poser la première question.
So I'll put the first question, obviously, to the director and the scriptwriter of the film. The first question. I know you wanted to make a film on power in a given institution, but were struck by the realism of your set and screenplay. Is it pure fiction, or are things inspired from reality? Wars between powers always exist. Are there certain really real things in your script?
If you can say.
Well, it's a very difficult question to answer.
It's a tricky one, yes, I get that.
You know,
the first question.
Yes, and the last one, okay.
No, I you know, so for me, it's fiction, but like with all fiction, reality always seemed to, smash you in the face, because of course I have a personal relationship to Al-Azhar. My grandfather went to Al-Azhar, and it's an institution that I have been interested in for a long time. And when I wrote the script, there was no conflict between the president and Sheikh Al-Azhar, the Grand Imam, but the conflict started when I had already written the script. So it has been very tense between Al-Azhar and Sisi. Bakri. It wasn't my intention at all I wanted to tell a story essentially about authority. But I couldn't ignore reality. I couldn't ignore it. And I had to, at one point, decide to create a parallel reality, in a way. Because Sheikh al-Azhar, the real Sheikh al-Azhar, Tayyib, he's a very intelligent man, very sophisticated, a voice of reason, I would say, in a region full of crazy voices and, you know, megalomaniac leaders, you know. He's actually a voice of reason. And so this power struggle that is going on is sort of a mix. I'm answering too long. I feel I'm answering too long. But I'll say one thing, though, for the people that have seen...
It's your press conference, you can take the time you need.
I'll just say that, for example, one thing that is not realistic in the film is how the teaching in the courtyard. This was historically done in Al-Azhar. Throughout the centuries, this was how it was taught. It was a very progressive university. You know, it was when the English came in, they started a more penalistic way of teaching in schools. In Al-Azhar, which was before its time, was that the teacher and the student choose each other, you know? So it was a relationship between the teacher and the student. It was an exchange. But then came the British system, which was like, you know, a man with a rod in his hand, you know, hitting the children when they answer wrong. So it was very progressive. Now, today, Al-Azhar is a very modern university. It has, you know, women started going to Al-Azhar in the 60s, and there is, you know, medicine and computer science and all kinds of other, but it's still the sort of the top, where it's the top is in Islamic learning and in Sharia and the different. So what I will say is that I have merged history and today and created a parallel reality. I know I will be accused of telling sort of that this is a sort of a documentary, but it's absolutely fiction. Sheikh al-Azhar is alive, and Makram is alive. Makram is not in jail. Yes.
La question suivante sera pour
Next question for Tawfik, who plays the part of Adam. What I loved in the film, apart from your acting, was the fact that this finishes with two questions. Adam, who are you and what have you learned? And it's wonderful to finish a film with questions from the character. Usually the questions are at the beginning. And here, indeed, we do wonder who Adam is and what he's learned. So I'd like to ask you that question myself. Who is Adam, according to you? And what, in the course of this initiation, did you learn? As time goes by, things seem more and more faint because he's perhaps less manipulated than people think.
I think, you know, when Tariq called me and sent the script and said, listen, I have a script and I think you'll be great for it. It's in, I was like, okay, in what language? He's like, Egyptian. I was like, I can't do that. And when I read the script, he was like, just read it. And I read the script, and the one thing, and I called him the next day and I told him the one thing that left me reading and made me want to do that is the last line of the movie. It's what you learned. Mm-hmm. Because to me, it's not imposing on the audience.
Absolutely.
And it's not imposing on you to give a certain kind of answer. It's a journey, de croissance. And people grow up in growing up in these places to be, you know, you're basically being robbed a little bit of your youth. So to me, that's the answer, really. And I try to still nowadays try to answer it. But to me, the answer is that, you know, you get to a point where you try your best at life, and life is going to throw stuff at you. So you be the best version you can be, even though it's crazy, you know. Mais c'est ça.
Très perfect. Merci.
Thank you for that answer.
Vous interprétez le
Faris, you play the part of Colonel Ibrahim, and he also is a character who surprises us right to the end of the film. He could embody cynicism, the manipulation of a shadowy political power, yet you hold out hope at the end of the film. You're the possibility of free choice, which interrupts the inevitable side of politics. He's a very, very interesting character to play because there are lots of opposites which live within that same character.
You know what's really interesting for me? Something that happened yesterday that after the screening, one of the guys, a person that was watching the film, came to me and he said, you know, I want to ask you something. Were you God in the film? And I was like, whoa, that's interesting. Is that how you see him? Yeah, you were God, right? You were God. I was like, no, but that's an interesting way of seeing it. Now, maybe now that you say it, I can say like, yeah, I was playing God. No. I mean, it's you know, it's kind of like a difficult character to maybe not to play, but to kind of like portray on screen, because you're representing something that's supposed to be like, you know, like really bad, and you know, he's against your all your belief about what these people represent. And here you have a guy that has a conscience. And I think it's just that, for me, Ibrahim kind of like he probably believed in the system at some point, and then after a while, he's just seen too many things, and he's like, you know, at least he feels like he's in power to at least, you know, save some people. And there was a point in the film when I told Tarek, like, this boy has to impress him, and he sees him like a better version than his own son, and he just wants to save him. And in a way, maybe he's looking at this boy and seeing, maybe if I was as courageous when I was young, maybe I would have been him, you know? So let me try this and try to save him. And I mean, he knows what strings to play, and he knows who to manipulate in a way. So he knows that he should call Sakran and say the right things. Also, he understands that it's better for us, because actually the blind sheikh will, you know, it's not good that if he goes out and the publicity is it's not going to be good for us anyways in the end. So it's better for us that we save this guy and he ends up as a hero. For him, I think there was one scene that we spoke about that I was saying to Tarek, like, you know, there has to be something with his son, his own son before, and he's kind of like seeing like his son is not moving into the direction he wants it to. It's a very small scene, like you barely notice it, but for me it was kind of like, this could have been my son, and I want to save him. So.
Merci beaucoup.
You're welcome.
Christina, yes.
Christina.
Vous travaillez avec le réalisateur depuis de nombreuses années.
You've been working for many years with the director. You even created a production society together. When you got the script for Boy from Heaven, which is a thriller, and also
questionnement politique, effectivement, sur la manière
asked many political questions about the way in which religious institutions work, Islam, which is a matter you need to deal with, but which calls for a lot of precautions and care. Did you, after the success of Niall Hilton Incident, which was a more classic thriller, what did you think about the screenplay? Were you in it right away, or did you have to think about it a bit? Did you have any doubts?
No, I didn't have any doubt at all. Absolutely not. I loved the script. Of course, it was an earlier version than of what we see on screen, but no, the script is so solid and so good, and I also share the interest of Middle East together with Tarek. So I think it's great to tell stories from the Middle East in this way as well. I think it's important.
Absolutely, you're right. Et dernière question que je me permets de poser.
Last question that I'd like to ask Frederick. This couldn't be shot in Egypt. We know the problems Tarek has with the Egyptian government, so it was shot in Turkey, in a magnificent place. But in terms of logistics, it was probably more complicated. How do you produce, over and above the problem of the language Egyptian, how do you produce a film of this scope in such beautiful settings with a lot of additional characters and so many striking images?
We, of course, saw the problem that we couldn't shoot this in Cairo. So we already from the beginning, Tarek and the set designer Roger started to really sort of look around in places in the world, basically, where this could be set. And we find Istanbul as a perfect replacement of Cairo, very much due to the type of architecture we have in that city. Because it's historically, there's a link between Cairo and Istanbul in terms of the buildings and et cetera, et cetera. And when we started to go down to Istanbul and look for locations, it was magic. I mean, everywhere we turned, we find a new place where we felt really fit the film. And in terms of scope of the film, I mean, this is a true European co-production. I've been fortunate enough to be co-producer on quite many different European co-productions in the past. And I would say this is probably the one where things have worked best in the sense of creating a group of creative talent from many different countries, different cultures, and put them together. And it really, really lifts up the production value and the film. So it's been a wonderful experience in that sense that we could do this together, so many of us.
I can imagine. Je crois que j'ai oublié de remercier Alexandre.
I forgot to thank Alexandre, who's here in the shadows. He's also the French distributor of the Nile Hilton incident and Boy from Heaven. So I forgot to greet him earlier on.
La lumière ne nous aide pas. Voilà, moi j'ai fait mon premier petit tour avec un immense plaisir.
I have asked a number of questions. I know there's a lady who had some questions to ask. So please go ahead. It's your hour of glory.
Voilà, juste précisez votre nom et le média.
Please give your name and the medium for which you work. Thank you for this magnificent film, which is very subtle when it deals with these political and religious topics. I have several questions. One for Tariq Saleh. You take us behind the scenes of Al-Azhar. When you talk about this religious institution in Cairo, how does it reflect Egyptian society? That's my first question. And then I have another question to Taoufik Baron in terms of Adam. When Adam embarks on this adventure, we wonder why he says, yes, you're so stoic. That's quite impressive. We realize later on that he is incredibly stoic. But how did you work on the character? We feel for him. We say, well, why don't you stop? Why don't you say no? Why do you go on? How did you work on all these issues? And for Faris, how does your relationship evolve with Adam? Because it does evolve. You're the colonel, you're his boss, so to speak. How did you work on this evolution in the relationship? You touched on it earlier on, but how did the duo work? How did you work together? Because it's this duo, these two characters, that really carry the film. Magnificent casting.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
So, Tarek.
Oh, yeah. So, Egypt is a very religious country. And I mean it in a... People are believers in a very sort of soft way, you could say. Religion is sort of in the natural life, you know? It's not complex and complicated. It's just there. Al-Azhar is an institution that is a political power, in a way. So most Egyptians, they don't want to be told what to do. They don't like that. They're very anarchistic people. So they accept that there is a pharaoh up there somewhere, and he can be on every wall and he can hold speeches, but they will do whatever they want in their daily life, you know. And that's part of what I love about Egypt. And all the stories about Islam in Egypt is about that. And I would like to share one little story like that I was told by my grandfather. It's a typical story from Egypt. It's so a sheep farmer is standing on a mountain screaming to God, okay? He's screaming at him, "Why have you not given me rain? Why have you killed this lamb?" And the people in the near village, they were worried because he was screaming at God, and they tried to contact the imam that was living on the other side of the Nile to say, "Come over and teach this man how to speak to God," you know? So the imam took the boat over the Nile. He came over and he spoke to the herder and said, "Listen, you have to read this surah, you have to pray like this rakat, this thing, you have to do exactly like this." And the herder was like, "It's an imam," so he's like, "Yes, of course, okay, I'm sorry, you know, I can't read and write, so I have to memorize these verses, you know." And then at night, the imam took the boat back over the Nile, and the herder came running on the water after him and said, "I forgot the verses that you taught me." And the imam was like, "Please go back. Do not remember the verses I told you." And this is a typical story that Egyptians tell each other. And what does that story tell us? Don't follow authority, you know? Have your own relationship to God. And that's what I love about Egypt, you know? Unfortunately, it's not it's an unrequited love, you know? Yeah.
What was the question? Oh, yeah. It was my question, right?
It was your turn, absolutely.
So, if I remember well, so I think basically you're asking a question of free will. And, you know, reading the script, it's so easy to get into the mindset of, and I remember I had that feeling, and I had discussions with Tarek where I was like, and you know, actors do that. It's like, wait, but what's my motive? Why am I not leaving? But then, you know, I come from Palestine. I left home when I was very young, and it's really the question of free will, whether you are doing it or it's doing you. And in life, and in these places, it's very difficult you have to be a bit of both. And only when looking backwards, you can understand what kind of decisions you made. And that's what we did in the film. It was, you were here and you have to deal with it. And that was very important for us to really tie down, because it depicts real life where, yes, you have wants and needs. He's a religious guy, in it for the right reasons. He dreamt of going to this place, but you know, life always has a different plan for you, and you have to just go with it, you know. So, to answer the question if we have free will, I really don't know. We're still thinking about it, you know.
I think it's really difficult with when that kind of authority comes in and says, like, you know, you're sitting on that chair, but I want you to sit on the other chair. And you would be like, this is how it starts. So for you, it's like, okay, maybe it's not too bad to sit on the other chair, you know. And then next time it's going to be something else that you're going to be asked to do. And authority, and I believe in those kind, like, it's difficult to say no to if you grow up with people kind of like, you know, like telling you that if a cop would stop your car and say that your lamp is broken, and you have to pay for it, and he says, "No, it's not though," and he goes and break it, and then you pay for it. So where do you stop saying no? When it comes to the relationship with Adam for Ibrahim, I think it's simple. It was really like, you know, he saw him as his pupil in the beginning. He saw something in him. He's a smart guy. you know, when we talked about the script, I just wanted him to come up with things. Like I was talking a lot to Tarek, like say he has to do something to impress Ibrahim. And the thing with you know, finding out about his son, it was a very important thing to me, because if he wasn't very like a smart guy that he was standing on his own, then my character would be like, why should I, you know, be teaching this guy or even caring for this guy? But he is, I mean, Adam is smart. He's a smart guy, and you know, like you said, stoic and also a strong personality. So I think just Ibrahim was impressed by him, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions?
Are there any other questions? If so, please raise your hand.
Oui. Bonjour, madame. Attendez peut-être le micro pour que tout le monde puisse vous entendre.
Wait for a microphone, please.
Bonjour.
Oui, bonjour. Hop là, je vais essayer de me lever. Bonjour.
Hello.
En tout cas,
In any event,
Béatrice Malige du French, je
Béatrice
viens de
Malige,
Montpellier.
I come from Montpellier.
J'ai des émissions au cinéma, radio.
I do programs on the cinema, on TV and the radio. Thank you for this film. Quite frankly, for me, it was quite overwhelming. I'm not familiar with this universe. I hear about it, but I don't really know much about it. And it's magnificent. The images, the settings, the frames are wonderful. I'd like to revert to the last sentence. I am an editor initially, and nobody answers the last question. The last scene, you could have removed the last image because you finished the film as you started it. He goes back to his fishing boat on the sea. So that was my first question. I'd like to know exactly what you really meant by all that. Second, I hope you'll understand my sense of humor. I thought that in this outstanding film, because I really loved it, I thought that there was an Adam and I was looking for Eve that I didn't find. Suddenly, I thought to myself that there weren't very many women in the film. That's a pity. In France, you may even have women imams which are invited. So this does exist, and I wanted to ask you all these questions.
Lovely questions. Lovely questions. You know, as an editor, it's interesting. I want to tell you that it's very observant of you because, yeah, when I wrote, when I wrote the script, it ended with a question, and I wasn't happy with it. So I felt that it was like, you know, a bow tie. I hate symmetry in art. I think it's, I don't like it. I don't like symmetry. So you would say, I like circles, though. It's symmetry in a way. But like, so I was thinking that if I wanted to end like it begins, with two men in a boat, you know, it starts with two men in a boat, it ends with two men in a boat, but everything have changed. And I think that that's sort of what life is, you know, that all you want to do is go back with your father in a boat and go out fishing, right? But, you know, life, you will carry life with you on that next journey, and it won't be the same. Unfortunately, it won't be the same. And I think that for me, it's on a very sort of basic human level, that's what I want to say with that, the other thing you talk, I sort of want to jump to your last question, but because it was very interesting. In Sweden right now, we have it's a very equal society, a beautiful equal society between men and women. And I am dual, you know, I'm half Egyptian, half Swedish. You know, my mother is Swedish, so my grandmother used to bathe fully naked in front of me in the archipelago in Sweden. And then I will go to Egypt with my family, you know, and they are, you know, talking about just, you know, whether God condemns masturbation or not, you know. And it's very different, two very different worlds, you know, in a way. And both worlds are beautiful. But I tell you, people are inside the same, and they wishes for the same thing, but something better for their children, right? That is sort of the basic thing that I see in both the sides of these families. So, in Sweden, we have a political thing in film right now where you have to have 50-50. It's 50-50, you know? And I love it. It's great. It's a way of pushing so that more women make film. I think it's great. You know, we should stand back. I mean, I agree, you know. But I'm also an artist, and I don't like politicians to decide what I do. So you know, so I wrote the script, and I was like, I'm not going to have one single woman in this script.
There's none.
No, there is.
Now?
Yes. Yeah, there are two women in the script.
Yeah.
No, three.
The daughter.
Yeah, the daughter.
Nej, men alltså, the mother of.
Yeah, the mother and the daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and so so I said, this is going to be impossible to make. And what I like with that is that what happens when it's a prison movie, right? It is a prison movie, essentially. What happens when you lock in men in a place? It becomes toxic. I mean, it's horrible. We all know that. We are guys. When there are no women around, it becomes really boring and horrible. And I mean, the actors were complaining. When we were shooting, they were like, where is all the women? I mean, and I was like, hey guys, you're here to work. There's no flirting on my set, you know? So it's like, you know, but we have a lot of women, and that was beautiful, a lot of women working behind the camera, you know?
The local production, most of it, yeah, a lot.
Yeah. No, so of course, it was a way of making Adam's world. Also, his mother is dead, right? So he also lives in a house without women, you know? So it's very conscious. What happens when, you know, I live in a house with only women because I have two daughters and my wife. And I'll tell you, that's another film that you could make. It's not so easy either. When they fight, I feel like Hans Blix before the war, you know? Whatever I say, I know it's going to be a war. I can't stop it.
Sorry, je regardais juste si on avait encore le temps d'une dernière question.
Time for just one last question.
Je vais donc poser.
Which I'll put then.
Une dernière et une seconde question à Tariq.
I have another question for Tarek.
Vous aimez le genre, vous aimez le cinéma de genre.
You love genre cinema. We could almost talk of a thriller, like in Niall Hinton Incident. What does this type of film bring to the story? What does the thriller add? Is it a question of lending itself to the film? Is it a question of creating a second inner suspense within the story?
No. I love genre film, like you say. I think it's very nice because it's a contract between you and the audience. That's what it is. So you have rules, and then you can break those rules, which becomes a surprise. And I always start, when I write the scripts, I create the world first. So the first draft of the script, I'm walking around with a camera without the plot in this world, and I write it like that. Walking into rooms, meeting people, you know. So it's like, and when I read those first drafts, I'm like, oh my God, this is a Palme d'Or film. I almost feel, you know, this is the film that wins, you know, da-da-da. And then it's like two doors, right? One door that says, go into that and embrace it, make it just about like, you know, not the plot. And then there's a door that has a genre that is communicating with the audience. And I think that it's very interesting to communicate. I think cinema is what happens between the screen and the people. It's what's in between, almost like religion, you know? It's what happens between people. It's this space. That's, in my opinion, what God is, you know? So, for me, it is interesting with genre because it is opening the dialogue, because everyone have their own reference to suspense, to good and bad, and things like that. And when you turn it around, I think you make people think. And in Europe, I don't know, not in France, but in the rest of Europe, genre is an ugly word, you know? It's you know, it's low cinema. It's crazy. I mean, all the masterpieces are genre films.
Absolutely.
You know? I mean, it's Chinatown, it's a low film, it's, you know, Apocalypse Now, The Godfather, is it, you know, bad films? I mean, it's genre films.
Yeah.
But of course, it's more than that. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Vraiment plus de questions?
There really are no further questions. I'm not depriving anyone of the opportunity. Then thank you so much.
Merci Tariq, merci Taoufik.
Thank you, Tariq. Thank you, Taoufik. Thank you, Faris. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Frederick.
Merci Frédéric. Bravo, le film.
Congratulations. The film will be released in France on the 9th of November, so we'll have time to talk about it again with great enthusiasm. I don't think I was the only person who loved your film. Thank you.
It was a pleasure to meet you. Have a very great day in Cannes.
Thank you.
Take care. Merci beaucoup. À très vite.
Thank you.